So on Fafanua today, we'll be looking at the challenges bedeviling African youth. We're talking about insecurity issues, poor governance, a lack of access to proper education, a whole lot of issues, governance issues, there economic issues are there, unemployment is also a big challenge for the African youth. And amidst all these challenges, a lot of people have been asking the question, is it possible for the African youth to still navigate through these murky waters and still thrive and succeed? What are the causal factors? Is government not doing enough? Are the youth not also positioning themselves in places where they can access opportunities and benefits? Now, of course, scale up their horizon and their potential and become great despite all these challenges. So, as I said earlier, we will be talking to Lyonga Waterson, who is a legal practitioner from Cameroon. I also have Thelma Mamle Djakwah, who is an educationist from Accra, Ghana, and of course, Fatteh Hamid, an investigative journalist from Lagos, Nigeria. They will be sharing their thoughts with us and helping us find some sort of solution to the issues seem to be tying African youths down. Gentlemen, okay, so I don't have Lyonga for now, but then Fatteh and of course Thelma, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice being here.
Okay, so let me start with Thelma because they usually say ladies first. So Thelma, from insecurity issues to unemployment, poor governance, economic struggles, why does it seem as though these problems are so entrenched in Africa?
Okay, so thank you once again for having me on this wonderful platform. Well, because I'm an educationist, I would like to start from the fact that our education system has so many issues where we are not raising learners and children to be able to think critically to match up to the social scale market, where all we want to do is to have learners who can only recall. They are just learning for the sake of recalling. And so this actually affects the key sectors because a learner leaves school and right after school, the student is expected to do something without having the necessary skills and the necessary values inbuilt in them from school. And it goes a long way through curriculum and even infrastructure in our various schools. So it's a bit tiring and difficult, yes.
Okay, so Fatteh, would you also lay the challenge seem to be tying African youths down from self-development and growth? Would you also tie it to the continent's poor education system, or maybe there are some other issues that we need to also consider? Fatteh Hamid, are you there? Okay, so I guess Fatteh might be having some sort of internet glitch, but then we'll just continue the conversation with Thelma pending the time we're able to get Fatteh and Lyonga to join us properly for this conversation. So Thelma, you talked about the poor education system, but then we've seen governments who have budgeted some certain amounts to actually boost education in terms of the curriculum, like you mentioned, in terms of the style of learning. So many investments have gone into education, so to speak. So does it mean that those financial investments have not been enough, or is it the style or maybe the mechanism, by which these governments use in channeling the form of education that they look out for? Probably that is what is skewed and not optimal.
Thank you so much once again. Like you just said, education is expensive. But if you really, really want something that is cheaper, you should try poverty and see how much it costs you to be educated. So it's well down to all the factors you mentioned. It's really expensive to have a good quality education. As per the amount of money our country is able to raise, most African countries are able to raise, can't even cater for the basic needs of even its own citizens, let alone educational quality. So when we also look at our curriculum and the resources available, it is not even well-rounded enough. We have certain countries in Africa that the curriculums that are taught can't even build up any youth to become and also to meet up to this world, the world that you are in, the state that you are in. They can't even just meet up to like things because the concept of the curriculum can't even progress the child to something else. So it's way bigger than just the money. It's also way bigger than just the curriculum, and the mechanism also matters because we have other African countries who have very, very, very good plans, but the means to get the plans active and working is not even available. So good policies, but we can't even do that. So you go to a school and learners are supposed to learn about robotics because I am a bit in the science. I can talk a little bit about it too. And we don't have anything at all to teach a learner robotics. We don't even have the basics of a fully furnished ICT lab where you can even teach somebody how to code. So imagine a child going through our education system and going to meet up to students all over the world to bid for jobs. How can you meet up to it? It makes it very, very, very difficult for us. Yes.
Now, Thelma, aside education, we're also talking about a continent that its youths have had to grapple with issues around insecurity. You can imagine a situation whereby youths cannot even go to class because they constantly have to live in fear. They're being destabilized, their homes are being destroyed. They have to migrate from one place to another to safer spaces just to be able to live. Now, having to live that kind of life, what does it mean for a continent when safety has even become a privilege rather than a basic right?
I think it's really, really sad for us to find our youth and ourselves growing in a continent that's supposed to be blessed and give us everything we need to have to go through this every day of our lives. And it's quite heartbreaking. But you would wake up and you are not even sure if you are going to come back home today because the certainty of you being alive is not something that you can even guarantee. You just can't say, I'm going out and I'll be back because you don't even know what would happen. And it's pretty scary. And the sad thing about it is that generally we all don't choose who we are and where we are supposed to be born. And so the system is making it very hard, not just education, but the system itself where we have to actually fight to be alive. You have to fight to be so hardened to be able to go through the system that we are finding ourselves in. And all these things would obviously affect us as compared to youths who are having backgrounds where they have every single thing that they need. We can't compare ourselves to them because they are even so exposed to things that are going to enhance their growth. If you have a functioning health system, based on where you're coming from, you won't struggle to know that malaria is a big deal because you have a doctor who is going to take care of you. But if you have been in a situation where you've been ill and you have to literally fight for a doctor to take care of you, it becomes very, very struggling and difficult for you to even know if you are also going to be able to go through this. And it's sad, but that is how and where we find ourselves.
Well, it's a big deal, I must say. Let's bring Lyonga Waterson into this conversation. Now, Lyonga, conflicts have displaced millions. It has disrupted schooling, destroyed lives, fueled cycles of extremism among youth. And just as Thelma said, we are equally struggling with healthcare services. And we have a youthful population, vibrant, intellectually sound, tech savvy. They have the potential to grow, but then have to constantly battle through these challenges. How has this actually reshaped life trajectories for young Africans?
In the show, I want to say is that you talked about a lot of youths in Africa, thousands, millions of youths who are being displaced all over Africa. But the question I want us to understand, what I want us to ask ourselves is why these conflicts first in Africa. These conflicts are caused by gross systemic neglect of African youths. The African youths are being neglected by their own governments. Now, key policies in Africa do not incorporate the youths first in policy making. The youths feel left behind. When we talk about these systemic challenges, we have to understand. I had to look at it like how can we define these systemic challenges that are causing this gross abandonment of youths in Africa. We can define these systemic challenges to be the locusts or the cankerworm that keeps eating Africa's development. And the fact that Africa remains underdeveloped, it means that the youthful population is being neglected. There is no employment, there are no jobs, like she said, there is no medical care, access to medical care, access to opportunity. We have gold in Africa, but the truth is that you have African youths every year dying in the high seas, dying in the deep oceans because they are going to search for gold in countries who don't occupy a single gold mine. What I want to say is that this systemic neglect of the African youth keeps eating into the potentials that these African youths have to bring about meaningful development in Africa. Truth be told, Africa has what it takes to grow. And the African youths are a definition of a ready force for growth and sustainable development. But because of systemic neglect, there is a continuous push for sustainable underdevelopment. Let me say it that way. What we have in Africa currently, we are facing a situation of sustainable underdevelopment where corruption, kleptocracy, and other systemic issues keep taking Africa back to the drain. Like Africa is not going forward. And when you neglect your workforce, when you neglect those who can bring about change, it's very difficult to have growth because we are neglecting the government, the systems, the institutions put in place, keep neglecting those who can bring about change.
Okay, all right. So let's talk to Fatteh Hamid. He has also joined the loop. Now, you just listened to Lyonga talk about systemic challenges or systemic neglect by government. So is it safe to say that Africa has actually failed its youth?
Yeah, thank you very much, I completely agree with him that Africa has failed its youth. Because when you look at the series of challenges that African youth have, faced over time, you realize that it is because we have leaders who do not care about how youth want to shape the narrative of the country. Do you understand? If we look at many years back, if we look at our current crop of leaders, when they were youth, they were the ones in charge, and now they are still the ones in charge. Now, it's unfortunate that this same set of leaders have not been able to provide a platform for younger generation to take over from them. We look at several governors that we have today, ex-president, the current president, they were young when they held position of authority. Look at our current president. He was one of those who was, the champions of Nadeko at the time. When they were at the forefront of leading the country, to ensure that the country is protected, the interests of Nigerians are protected. You understand? But now, do we have a situation where the same youths that are in the age range of Mr. President, when he was, leading those charges, are they there to do the same thing now? No. It's not the same. Youths are going to our institution. There is no platform for them to get ready-made jobs when they are done. For someone like me, I studied computer science. I'm a graduate of computer science. I'm in the field of journalism. Yes, it is passion. But how many much more Nigerian graduates are out there? How many much more African graduates are out there with qualified certificates without the jobs to show for it? So when our youth lack the proper access to good education, quality education, they don't get it. The second thing, even after those ones who have been able to struggle and tussle to get adequate education, get it, there is no job for them. So it's a systemic problem, because when they are unable to get these things that are meant to be basic ways of providing for themselves, many youths turn to vices, social vices. Then we have increase in the number of short-staff out there, the number of youths who are invested in scamming up the sweat of others. So it goes back to the foundation, it goes back to the basis, which is our leaders. What are our leaders doing? What are they doing? How are they ensuring that they continue to give us a platform where African youth can leverage upon to scale? That's the problem. We are not having it. Look at the recent electioneering processes that we have across Africa, where we have persons who should be grandparents still ruling our countries. Well, I mean, and you continue to say that we want a change. We want young Africans to take charge of key sectors. How are they being given the platform? How are they given the privileges to shape those sectors when they are not given the opportunity to? Now, the number two, on my own aspect, I believe that the current set of leaders do not trust the youth enough to hand over the societal activities or the charge of this sector to them. They believe that they still need to learn. But if you do not give them the platform to even practice the experiences, the ideas that they have to bring them to life, how sure are you, how would you be able to know that they are even capable of enforcing some of these fantastic ideas that will shape the future of Africa? Unfortunately for us, we do not have this. Our leaders do not trust us enough to give us that platform for us to scale.
Fatteh, I seem to understand. I seem to understand the pain right here because, of course, you're a youth, all right? And I actually felt it when you said, "What is the government doing?" A lot of challenges that are solvable, that are resolvable, things that can be done to ameliorate the plight of the African youth, but it seems as though the government is not doing anything according to how you've put it. So Thelma, I come to you now. I mean, Africa's education system is part of what you discussed or you said earlier, often fails to produce employable youth or provide the basic amenities or the conducive environment for the youth to grow. But then we see the disconnect because when we see this African youth who travel abroad, they gain additional skills and they become successful. So if we are putting the bulk of the blame on the government, does it mean that there is a deliberate agenda by the African government to keep African youths incapacitated on all sides? Hello, Thelma, can you hear me? Okay, so we'll probably just push that question to the other gentleman, that's Lyonga. So just as I said, can we say that the African, system, so to speak, is deliberately keeping African youth incapacitated, looking at the things that they ought to have done, but then we've seen African youths who have been able to scale the hurdle, travel to other continents or to other countries, and have been able to succeed?
An educational curriculum that does not serve the century or the current needs of your country, and those who are going through that curriculum are the youths. It means that I can say that you're neglecting, you're doing that intentionally. And I want us to look at the African situation where you have educational hegemony, wherein, for example, you go to school, you go to a university, and after you have your first degree, there is no direct opportunity for you to have a job. You still have to go and write a concours. And after you write that concours, there's still another level of scrutiny that has to be done before, let me say, 15 youths will be given a place to go and work. That's what we call educational hegemony, which is not practiced out of Africa. In countries like Europe and America, the best students, when you perform well, you have your opportunity, you have your ideas, they guide you with your ideas to convert your ideas into workable businesses wherein you can shine as a youth. But if you come to the African situation, it's completely different, particularly given the fact that we practice educational hegemony. Going to school and doing maybe a degree in history does not guarantee you having a job. And it also calls to pose a question: why will you be going to school to do 3 years of history, wherein you can do some degree to do maybe 3 years of maybe computer maintenance or TV repair, or maybe you do something that is practical, which can be a need in the continent as it stands. So when we look at it in that light, we discover that there is some neglect. For example, I look at where I am in Boya, Cameroon. We have a lot of issues that has to do with waste management. For example, that's just a practical example. But you don't see the government trying to create some network, some youths trying to empower some youths to try to create maybe a waste management facility where they can be engaged into maybe tiles production with waste and all of that. You see, these youths are being neglected, left, just because of the different procedures and mechanisms that have been put in place to even access funds for such ventures. And if you look at the procedures for such ventures, for example, trying to say, okay, now I want to go to this town in Ghana and all of that to set up maybe a waste management facility, you discover that the procedures are just so huge because of the laws that are in place. So they don't tend to favor the young people in Africa to go about creating ventures that can lead to employment and also to better the lives of the African youth.
Okay. Now, Fatteh, yeah, I understand. Now, Fatteh, we're talking about a government or an African system where they have to battle with a lot of issues, having to raise revenue, having to, of course, fund the budget, having to, secure diplomatic ties and strengthen them, having to deal with different critical sectors of the economy. Then they have to deal with poverty. They have to provide infrastructure. They have to deal with climate change and climate actions and all these problems that these African governments have had to deal with. Would you say that these challenges are probably too overwhelming for the African governments to actually address? Maybe there's a need for help to help them manage the situation and be able to adequately provide, most especially for the African youths?
That government, I want to say the vision of all structures put in place in Africa.
Okay, so Lyonga, this question is actually directed to Fatteh, all right? If we can definitely accommodate you, but then it will be after Fatteh's submission. Fatteh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
So did you get my question?
As I said, yeah, I get it completely.
Okay, please go ahead.
To start with, I do not agree that the challenges are overwhelming for the African leaders to address themselves. I do not believe so. We can see their counterparts, like, as Lyonga mentioned, in Europe, in Asia, how they are creating opportunities for youth to thrive. So we can see that. Now, coming to the next question you asked, which is if they needed support, if it has become overwhelming for them to do, then that brings us back to the subject that we're discussing, which is the youth. The youth are the next person that the leader to look towards as for support, to be able to bring fresh ideas, offer new age opportunities that they can merge with the old ideas that they have to scale the continent into a bigger prospect. But unfortunately for us, our leaders are still stuck in the old age, where they believe that the ideas that they have are the ideas that can continue to push the continent forward. So I do not agree that it's overwhelming for them. I believe that it is a governance issue. I believe that it's the lack of intentionality to ensure that Africa as a continent scale, to ensure that our youth take over the mantle of leadership from our leaders to usher in fresh ideas that can propel us into a brighter future. And that is why we have the same challenges across education, across health, across technology. We do not have even manufacturing opportunities for youth to bring in their ideas. I had an interview about 3 years ago with a manufacturing company, a steel manufacturing company, and you see that these youth, they are youths. They are challenged because there is no funding. They have issues with electricity. They have issues with the exchange rates in the country. So it's a problem. The African leaders are not giving us opportunity. They are not giving us the platform for even the new ventures of African youth to scale. So it's an intentional sabotage against the growth of African youth that is being engineered by the African government to ensure that the African youth continue to to be inferior to them. I believe that is the case from my end.
Okay, all right. Lyonga, you were going to say something, but before you do that, let's put it in another perspective, but still in the line of this particular discussion. We're talking about a continent with about 400 million youths, all right? We're talking about a continent that has governments that is said to be lean in revenue in terms of generation and disbursements. We're talking about a government that have to borrow from both international and domestic sources to be able to fund its budgets and carry on its financial obligations. We're also talking about a government that's had to grapple with instability, political instability, civil unrest. I mean, we're also talking about these unrests that are said to be fueled by external factors and all these terrorism and fights and killings and kidnappings and banditry and all that. I'm not making a case for government, but then how do you see it? Is it a challenge that the government can actually sit atop and resolve, most especially as it affects the African youth? Or is it something that is just beyond the ordinary? Lyonga, can you hear me? Okay, well, Thelma, so I already asked the question anyway, but then I would still want to look at it from that perspective of all the issues that the African governments have had to deal with in line of the things that I mentioned. And I'd like you to reevaluate if you probably would think that these are issues that are beyond, what the government can actually resolve. And there probably might just be a need for some sort of help to help governments in Africa deal with these issues as it concerns the African youth. What do you think?
Okay, I think that when it comes to help actually comes from yourself, within yourself. And so if we would want to say we are going to have to look at external help, then actually there's no help coming anytime soon. And then again, there's this question that, as you were asking me the question, came to my mind, that is it only Africa that goes through the same issues? No. I think the same issues go through every other continent in the world. So whether we are struggling with budgeting, revenue, we have so many population, everybody has the same. So does it go beyond us? I wouldn't like to agree, because I think there are other ways we would want to find a way to make it work. And generally, when you look at our setting very well, you would know that we have lots of things that are being mismanaged, which could have been used at places that are very relevant to help our youth to have a better future. But all these areas are just being ignored, and we focus on the things that we shouldn't focus on the most. And so if we ask the question if it goes beyond us, I wouldn't agree with it, because I think it is within our means to find the solutions to our problem, because you would have to find the solution to your problems yourself.
Okay, so we understand these issues are there, right? And we seem to understand that the problem might not go away if there are no deliberate attempts to resolve this crisis. But then we'll look at it further and look at how it affects the African youth economically. Now, there are issues around jobs, skills mismatch, unemployment rates, and this has actually made it impossible for African youths to equally get jobs and for them to equally have the right skills for them to, fit into the African labor market. So I'll just stay with Thelma for a while before I go back to Fatteh. Is there a way we can actually reverse these issues? Are there things that need to be put in place for us to have African youth to have the requisite skills for them to access jobs that they will be able to, of course, channel the strengths, their knowledge, be useful in those aspects, and be gainfully employed?
Yes, and there are so many ways that we can help the youth. And I would generally like to take a look at, before somebody becomes a youth, what are we doing for them? And when you look at our education setting, it's not something to write home about. We raise students who don't think about a solution to a problem. once there's a problem, you would want to run away to look for a place where there's already a solution and fit inside. So these are all skills that we would have to look at to be able to instill these skills into the younger ones who would then become youth and would have more opportunities than those who are already youth. Because it's a bit challenging that, for example, like I said earlier, we have students who are just memorizing to pass exams with no application at all for anything at all. So imagine you have such a student who has finished the university and it's a first class student, but is not able to apply any simple course into the field of work. They are not even able to have a good teamwork. They can't collaborate. They are not able to bend themselves a bit to find a solution to problems. So it just goes beyond how our youth can become more employable, but how the whole system can be worked on to be able to instill the requisite skills in the people that we are raising as citizens. And then to the youth that we have now, it goes beyond just the government, but it also then comes on our mindsets as youths too. In as much as we want to say, yes, the system is failing, but what is the mindset that we are having? What mindset do we have? Are we fixed on problems or we are fixed on solutions? Are we fixed on making changes in our individual spaces or we are waiting for somebody to take us from our feet? So it's a bit dicey because we also have what it takes to make ourselves employable. So for example, you did economics, learn skills during your vacation that will enhance you as a person. So when you get employed at an IT zone, you have the good skills that it needs for you to be employed, because you just can't sit and say you are waiting for the system. Yes, if you want to sit and wait for the system, I think we all have to wait for long. So in as much as we are here, what then can we do to help the solution and the problem and find a solution to it?
Okay. So we are going to go on a break right now. Thelma and Fatteh, I think we just lost connection with Lyonga. Hopefully we can have him back. But then you guys should just stay with us, all right? We go on a break and return. And in the next few minutes that we'll be looking at the solutions. We'll be dedicating the time to the solutions to all the issues that we have itemized on the show this afternoon. We go on a break right now. We'll be back to conclude on this. Of course, you're watching Fafanua Afrika. We have been looking at the issues that African youths have been plagued with, and then we try to find solutions around them. Maybe that could be some sort of a liberation, not only for the African youths, but also, of course, for governments too, who actually sit atop these issues and are expected to drive conversations and do what is necessary to help these African youths glide over their problems and equally evolve to becoming better people in the society. Now, we've been talking to Lyonga Waterson, a legal practitioner, Thelma Djakwah, who is an educationist, and of course, Fatteh Hamid, an investigative journalist. So I'll just bring the conversation close to Fatteh right now. And yes, we're looking at solutions. We understand there are infrastructural gaps, there are financial gaps, there is also what we call intentional gaps, all right? So what sort of honest conversations do you think that the African government need to be having, either in their microcosm or regionally or as a continent, to begin to address these issues?
Thank you very much. I believe the first things that the African government generally should be looking at the moment is how they can involve the youth. As Thelma said earlier, we also have to look at what we are pushing out and what we are allowing the younger ones who are not youth yet, what they consume, how we build them. So when we are able to build a solid base for them, they are able to leverage on that to become fantastic youth as well themselves. Do you understand? So now the first issue that the government should look at is how they can involve youth, and that is number one. Looking at our elections, looking at the age group, the age limit for youth to be able to contest electoral. So we need electoral reforms, brother. Thank you. We need electoral reforms across Africa generally to allow youth to be able to hold significant positions where they can effect real change, not giving youth SSA media, giving them assistant positions. No, we want to have them hold positions where they can effect change. Number two goes to the youth themselves. The youth need to look inward. About 3 weeks ago, I went to the secondary school I graduated from almost 2 decades ago. When I went there, I was completely unhappy. Yeah. So when I got there, I had to, speak with teachers to see how we can involve the secondary school children, these school children, because it is important. If we are not looking at them at the moment, then it becomes a problem for us, because in 5-6 years' time, these folks are going to become youths. They're going to be in our positions as well. So when they do, and they do not have the quality, they do not have the right perspective to be able to move the country forward, then it becomes a problem. So ourselves, we need to go back to those platforms. If it's our religious platform, if it's our social networks, if it's our NGOs, our civil society organizations, where we can ensure that we empower the school children in secondary school with the right opportunities, give them the right ideas. It goes down to even choosing career paths. It's not a problem being a blue collar person. It's very important that you have to have a white collar job. If you see that your intellectual quotient, your ability is to be a organizer, it's to be a mechanic, it's not a disease. One of the major problems that we have is that we start to condemn people who do not want to go to schools. It's not about getting PhDs and masters. No, let us revive our technical colleges. It's also another issue with the government. Let us revive our technical colleges. Let our technical colleges function well. So, okay, if it's a mechanic that this person wants to, go down as, wants to become, let them face it squarely. Let them push forward to it. Then when we have that, we are able to scale. We know that, okay, we are going to be able to reduce the number of persons who are looking for white collar jobs out there, because you know that your ability is restricted to a blue collar job. It is not a problem if you're a plumber. No, it's not. So we have to look at these things. So it also goes back to our curriculum in our respective schools as well, whereby these things are being forced down upon students to become this. Then there's the need also for the involvement of CSOs to ensure that the parents out there are also educated, are also informed, are also enlightened about the need for their children to be able to pick jobs and career paths that are focused on how they can be better. So it's not only on the government alone. No, it has to cut across all of them. The youth, the government, the parents, and civil society organizations. And I believe that when we do this, we are going to have a rapid improvement in a few years' time.
Okay. So, Thelma, what are your own thoughts around this? I mean, what solutions exist for you? I mean, how you see it to improve the lives of Africa's growing generation?
I really agree with my dear brother with a lot of the things he said. And one of the things that I would like to talk more of is having to create internships to be able to scale up the skills of the youth to be able to meet up to the world standard. So working with NGOs to have intentional, very, very intentional internships for them. Because if we have a 3-month course on electronics or robotics, or we have it on just engineering, where there's a practical hands-down skills available for them to learn, in addition to whatever they have learned, it bridges the gap. And also looking at how our curriculums are reformed, they should be reformed to be able to skill them up, skill every learner up, every student up, every youth up to meet up the standard. And also, like he said, it shouldn't be just something that we are sitting elsewhere and we are not involving the families and the communities involved. We have to also add them in and make sure that they are well equipped to be able to meet up to the world standard. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Thelma Mamle Djakwah, an educationist, and of course, Fatteh Hamid, investigative journalist. And of course, though we lost connection with him, but then it was nice to have had him while we did. That's Lyonga Waterson, a legal practitioner, for sharing your thoughts with us on the show. Thank you. And so Africa's youth face deep challenges, we understand, but targeted action in governance, education, employment, and climate adaptation, and of course other areas can actually turn these potential into real change. And that's what my guests have actually shared with us on the show today. And if Africa wants the best for itself, then it should listen to its youth, because they are the key to a liberated economy and future. Thank you so much for being part of today's edition of Fafanua Afrika. My name is Lyonga Waterson. See you some other time.